Hello, everyone. Welcome, all platformers, to this week's live stream. This time we have with us Ofir Cohen. He's the CTO of Containers and Supply Chain at Wiz, and he will be talking today about um, progressive delivery for Kubernetes using Argo Rollouts. Ofir, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a bit
Yeah,
about what
sure.
it is and what you're going to be talking about today.
Sure. Thanks, Udi. So today we're going to talk about Argo Rollouts. The target audience is obviously platform engineers, also SREs and developers. We're essentially going to discuss the challenge of promoting software artifacts across environments. So if I have dev, staging, and prod, how do I do that and what are the challenges?
Awesome. So tell us a bit about, before you dive into the subject, tell us a bit about what you do at Wiz. What is Wiz, if anyone doesn't know yet, and maybe this is a good time to put this up there.
Sure. So I work for Wiz. I've been with Wiz for the past almost 2 years now. My background is cloud native. As a software engineer, Wiz helps you to secure everything you build and run in the cloud, essentially gaining visibility and also evaluating risk for what is happening in your environment, mapping from cloud to code. So if I have a container and a pod running in production, that maybe it is vulnerable and it has CVEs, maybe it's publicly exposed to the internet that where everyone can access it and do lateral movement and steal a lot of my data. Wiz is a platform, an agentless platforms that allows you to do it at scale and have full coverage for your code, your containers, your Lambda functions, your infrastructure, and way more. That's Wiz in a nutshell. About myself, my main background is software engineering. I've been a developer at both Intel and Mobileye, and then a CTO at Insight. And currently with Wiz, I'm leading the container security front and the software supply chain with Wiz OS and many more. I really enjoyed speaking and learning about Kubernetes and the CNCF ecosystem. I try to participate in community meetings around EKS security and Kubernetes security in general. And otherwise, I'm a Go developer and I love playing the guitar. Okay, should we get started, Udi?
Yeah, let me just remind everyone watching that if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below or in the chat, and we will answer them as we go along. Obviously, the recording of this session will be available on YouTube and on the platform's website. And if you want to reach out to Ofir afterwards with any questions or ideas, so feel free to do so on our Slack or LinkedIn or any of the platforms on social. So without further ado, Ofir, let's get started.
Yeah, also thanks for that. We feel free to reach out both on LinkedIn, and I'm also available in the Kubernetes Slack and the CNCF Slack. Just look for Ofir Cohen. Okay, so maybe let's get started. And before we even talk about the problem, I highly recommend Argo Rollouts. Is maybe one step back. In Kubernetes, what Kubernetes did, if you listen to like a Kelsey Hightower podcast, if you go to the Go podcast and you listen to other the Kubernetes podcasts from Google, which are both like great podcasts that I highly recommend to listen to and learn about the ecosystem. When Kelsey Hightower first pitched Kubernetes, and he's absolutely great with messaging. He's able to say a lot with very few words. He said that the Google, what they actually did is they codified the runtime. They codified the infrastructure runtime. And Joe Beda called the Kubernetes a distributed systems kernel. Like, so what does it actually mean? Like Kubernetes is very easy to compare it to Linux, right? In Linux, we have the Linux kernel, but then we also have the distributions around the Linux, like Fedora, Ubuntu, CentOS, etc., etc. Kubernetes in its own is not so useful because it contains the core of what Kubernetes is. But what about all the add-ons? If I want networking, I need a CNI plugin, like Cilium or Amazon VPC CNI. If I want DNS, I need a core DNS, kubeDNS, right? If I want to do, I don't know, advanced networking security, I need a service mesh like Istio or Linkerd. Now, what Kubernetes did is it created a shared vocabulary and a common representation for how to roll out deployments. What is a deployment? Or what is a pod? A pod is just like an application, a set of one or more containers, a workload. So this is like a container image with some parameters, right? This is like a glorified tarball that also has like parameters and JSON. That's what it does in a nutshell. Now, Kubernetes doesn't offer the abstraction of an app, right? It has deployments, it has stateful sets, it has daemon sets, and it has jobs. But these are like very low level. It doesn't talk at the microservice level. We as a platform team or as developers, I develop a full stack web application and I want to run it in production. So I have a front end with I have like a React web application, which is running in the backend. And then I also have React in the front end. And I have Postgres as a database. Now, all of these tiers, how do I represent it in Kubernetes? Each of them will have a deployment, maybe except for Postgres, which is either running as managed or not. But the question is, how do I roll out a new version of this application? I don't really have a good abstraction. And this is where Argo CD, the Argo project kicked in. We have a Argo CD, which allows us to move higher up the stack and essentially talk in applications, which is great. So we have GitOps and we have continuous reconciliation. But one question is, what happens when I have V1 of my application and I want to roll out V2? How am I going to do that? So Kubernetes doesn't provide a lot in that regard. It does provide a deployment rollout strategy, which is either recreate or a rolling update, which is good. I mean, we can achieve zero downtime. But what we really want is to reduce the risk that is associated with rolling out applications to production. So this was a very long intro of saying that Argo Rollouts is a way to allow us to use like advanced deployment strategies to reduce the risk of deploying apps to production. Okay, and in this video by a guy, which was he was originally supposed to host the guy from the performance community. Mm-hmm. He breaks out. I highly recommend that you go to YouTube and check out this video. This is one of the best. I really like his content. I highly suggest to subscribe to the channel. Watch the video. It's zero fluff, zero bullshit. Go ahead and do it if you haven't already. And even if you are familiar, I think you will learn something new. So
also other tools from the CNCF landscape and general tutorials about platform engineering, and there's a whole playlist on Backstage as well. So the guy is very prolific. So it's not just a full Argo rollout.
Exactly. Yeah, lots of great content about platform engineering. Another thing in that regard is I recommend to watch. We will explain what promotions means in a second, but I highly recommend to watch the YouTube video with Victor Farsik, which is one of my idols in Kubernetes and the CNCF ecosystem. I really appreciate his opinion. He's not affiliated with any employer, and he just says what he wants, for better or worse. I fully subscribe to his train of thoughts and to his content. He has a great channel called the DevOps Toolkit and the DevOps Paradox with Dylan, the podcast. I highly recommend to watch this lecture because it's very related to what we're going to discuss. It breaks down the whole deployment and CI/CD and platform engineering in a very good way. And finally, you should check out testing in production. So this is what we're going to discuss today, but on steroids. This is using Istio and Prometheus. So you have all the buzzwords in the world in 126 minutes. Okay, let's get started. Before we had Argo rollouts, how did we deploy applications to Kubernetes? In either of two ways. Kubernetes is just an API, and don't kill me for saying that, but Kubernetes is just an API server and a database, right? From the client, from the consumer perspective, or from the CI/CD.
I don't think it's even offensive to say. I think that's one of the selling points. It's just a simple, clean REST API.
Exactly, and most people say that even if most of Kubernetes disappears and it gets changed, what will probably not change is the API, because we created such a good abstraction. Victor calls it the universal API. We're able to express the exact level of abstraction for services, for deployments, and we have all the building blocks. And we also have custom resources, which allows us to extend Kubernetes to use cases it was never designed to do, but at the same time, it doesn't prevent you from extending it and using it to more usages. So the API is one of the most appealing properties of Kubernetes. Now, when we go through the API, let's say that we want to create a new deployment, a new pod, or maybe we want to update an existing deployment. So we have to go through the API to do that, right? Because we have to validate the YAML manifest or the JSON that we send. We need to know that you're authenticated, authorized, admission controllers, the whole 9 yards. Now, assuming that our request is correct, it gets persisted to etcd, which is the database. What happens next is that Kubernetes is also an event-driven machine. So we store, let's say, the new pod or the updated pod in the database, and then we have controllers running in the background doing the reconciliation loop. Now imagine Argo CD seeing like a new deployment in Git, and it syncs your application. What happens is that we don't really have control over what instances go up and what instances go down. So the default rolling update, what it will do is it will create a replica set and then update one new pod of V2. Let's say that we update from V1 to V2. So it will create one V2 pod and then take one V1 pod down, and then another V2 pod and another V1 pod down, etc., until all of the replicas, all of the instances are replaced. This is very risky and problematic, especially if like I'm mission critical. Let's say that I am Bank of America. Okay, I work in the finance industry. This is mission critical. I cannot allow my banks to go down. Or maybe I'm a hospital and I need high availability. Or I'm AWS and I'm offering my services to like the entire world or the entire region. We want to mitigate the risks associated with bugs, because bugs will happen eventually. There is no way of escaping that. So what we can do is we can bound the risk. How do we do that? Using a control process, okay? This is the problem statement. How can we reduce the downtime risk when we deploy a new application or update an existing application? Udi, do you think we captured the problem statement correctly?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think this, besides being risky, it's also, I mean, because it's risky, people are putting guardrails or brakes on the process, so it's slowing down the velocity, and you're sacrificing the velocity or your business goals for safety, for security, just because you're too afraid to deploy directly to production.
Exactly, and you know what? This is a great point. This is an awesome point, because you are talking in business KPIs. When we think about Backstage, what problem did Backstage, what problem does Backstage trying to solve for? As a business, why would I put so much money on engineering and so many people working on a Backstage platform, developing it and implementing it? The reason is the velocity. We want to increase our business. How do we do that? We move fast and break things responsibly, right? Like in Facebook. So the way to increase, to deliver more features to production as platform engineers is that if we have golden path and we have automation and we have guardrails and not gates. Remember, developers are not stupid. They will find the path of least resistance to bypass whatever you provide them, because that's life and that's how it works. So rather than locking them into a highly controlled process and asking them to do what you want them to do, why not just like platform as a product? Why not just treat them as a real consumers and users and give them a very convenient platform, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so Argo Rollout is set to do that. It allows us to reduce the risk, and it's a rather simple solution. It provides us with the ability to deploy our application gradually to production. So we have what is called a progressive delivery, where we can choose either a blue-green style of deployment or canary deployment, which we will define them in a second. We have to say that like Argo Rollouts it has its own like ecosystem. It's not just the deployment per se, but it's also consulting external data sources. Like we have Prometheus running in our cluster for observability. So Prometheus scrapes metrics from our applications and pods, and also from the Kubernetes API server, and stores them in a time series database. And then we have Grafana for visualization. We can ask interesting questions like how many HTTP requests were failed during the last hour. This is very important. This is SRE, site reliability engineering, bread and butter. We can ask, what is the average latency, the golden metrics, what is the failure rate, the throughput, etc., etc. Now, what's nice about automation and integration is that rather than having a human in the loop, like when you roll out a deployment to production today, usually what happens is that people are like headless chickens, right? It's like, I'm very scared. I don't know if I want to deploy it because maybe it will fail. Okay, so then let me challenge you. What do you do when you have full control over your CI/CD? Like, what would you really look at? What would make you feel comfortable? And one answer to that is Prometheus. If I can automate the same manual steps, like monitoring for failures and high latencies, then why do I really need someone to sit with the keyboard and mouse and just like babysit the metrics? Why not doing it automatically? If I'm Google or Facebook, and by the way, they have like tons of in-house tooling for deploying applications to production. No one is going to like, Google is not putting 500 SREs to babysit Google Maps and Google Search. It doesn't work like that, and it doesn't work in hyperscale like that. And never mind Google, even if I'm an early stage startup, the last thing I want to do is to pay a lot of employees in order to babysit data. So Argo Rollouts allows us to like consult external data metrics and automate a lot of the manual steps. Okay, was it clear?
Yeah, and I think it's a bad use of resources putting an SRE, just to watch a dashboard on a screen. And most of organizations are in shortage of SREs or talent that really understands Kubernetes. So it's a very scarce and valuable resource, even for companies like Google. And you are Google, aren't you not?
Yeah.
Can we say that now?
Yeah, the closing is not done, but we're getting there, I think.
All right.
Perfect. Okay, so Argo Rollouts is great, but it focuses only on a single cluster, because Argo Rollouts, the way it works is that you do a kubectl apply or helm install, and then you have like, it's an operator. What's an operator in Kubernetes? You have a controller that runs like it's a pod running within the cluster. It can also be highly available pod. And it's a set of CRDs, custom resource definitions. Now, Argo Rollouts allows us to reduce the risk and use advanced deployment and rollout strategies for a single cluster. But in reality, we, as a platform engineers, as platform teams, we have more than one environment. We have our development environment, where as developers and the platform teams, this is where this is our sandbox or our workspace. This is where we make changes. This is where we develop new features and fix existing bugs. After we're happy with our changes and they pass, we submit them to, let's say, GitHub Actions or GitLab or whatever. We get a thumbs up, everything is working. We send it to staging. Staging is an environment that is very close to production, but it doesn't deal with like real data. It's like it has more or less the same deployment. It looks the same from the outside. The data resources and the permissions it has are different. So this is another risk mitigation technique. Rather than going straight from development to production, we have another staging environment. And then from staging, we deploy to production. And in between these two steps, this is where Argo rollout, it has like, it's not relevant, okay? So it looks like we have a blind spot. Who is in charge of moving the artifact? I built a new container image. I have a new Kubernetes manifest. I made changes. I want to roll them out to production. Who is going to help me carry this sweet container and the YAML manifest from dev to staging and from staging to prod? Who is going to do that? Okay, this is the main topic of this talk. Okay, so who is orchestrating the orchestrators? This is like the main questions, right? We love the word orchestrator. Kubernetes is a container orchestrator. Now we're talking about the release orchestration. So one thing that I should say is that within the world of CI/CD and platform engineering, it's very, very hard to like, it's like the Princess Bride famous quote. You keep using that word, but I don't think it means what you think it means. So what's a deployment, what's a release, and what's a promotion? Aren't they interchangeable with one another? No. Deployment means that we took like a build. It could be a local, even a local container image that I built myself. Maybe I added a new feature. I changed my website background from blue to brown. So now I have a new, I did Docker build and I have a new container image. I want to roll out, or maybe it's not the right word, I want to test it in another environment. So I deploy it to that environment. How? Using kubectl apply, imperative approach. Don't kill me for that. You can also use Argo CD and do GitOps. But for local development, you probably wouldn't do GitOps because it's not like, it's a waste of time. So we deploy our new manifest, a new container image to the new environment. It could be dev, it could be staging, it could be prod. A release is something that marks a point in time. It's like an immutable artifact. We build our software, and we have V1, and then in between V1 and V2, or maybe V1.1 or V1.1, maybe we have like a lot of developers working on different features, and we want to hold with the release, like in the waterfall model. Maybe we have a weekly release cadence because this is what our organization needs to do. So once we are settled with the changes that we want to roll out to production, this is where we say, okay, this is a release. This is a point-in-time snapshot of stable and tested artifacts. This is the exact opposite of CI/CD, by the way. CI/CD takes it and automates it across the entire process. But let's say that we have some manual work, okay? A release is just like a Git tag or a Git branch that says, usually it's Git tag, but it says, this is a new release. So we have a deployment and we have a release. What's a promotion? The same release like Nginx V1 or Node 22 or Node 22.2, it can be deployed in both dev and staging, but not in production. Why? Because in production I have Node 20. Everything is running. I don't want to stop my business. I want my business to still operate. So it's not yet deployed in all environments. Promotion is our way to answer the question from the previous slide. Who helps me carry a version across the environments, right? Argo rollouts help us to roll out within a staging and production, but it needs a signal. It needs like to know that something has changed in production. So there is like, this is the missing link. This is the glue between the environments in the pipeline. Udi, would you like to add something on top of that?
No, super clear and interesting. I'm just wondering, just because you mentioned the Princess Bride, also I think GitOps is a term that's being thrown around a lot, and it doesn't mean the same for every organization. And a lot of many times I've heard people say, "Yeah, we have fully implemented GitOps practices," and then like the follow-up question, you realize that not really. So I wanted to ask if you have, from your experience, either with your customers or at Wiz, like how do you define GitOps, and what do you think is the correct definition or the goal that we want to get to with GitOps?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I couldn't agree more with you. You make a great point. The Open GitOps defines, like, I think it was Dan Garfield, the top 3 contributor to Argo. He created the website, or maybe someone else. Don't catch me on the exact word, but there are 4 principles. One of them is that we want a continuous reconciliation. We have the desired state in Git, and then we have the actual state on the cluster. We want to be able to continuously check for drifts and also do self-healing and apply them. We want to ensure that all of our environments are described as code, are stored as code. It's environment as code, essentially. And why is that important? Because tomorrow, let's say that disaster recovery, your production crashes. If you created scripts and Notion pages or wikis, who is going to remember to run all of these different scripts and commands? Do you have like a notepad or a Word document, a Google Doc? Like, there is no way that you will be able to do that and move fast with more than 5 or 4 servers or clusters in production, right? Do you agree with that?
I do. And one correction though, I checked while you were speaking, and the term GitOps was coined by Alexis Richardson, the founder of Weaveworks, and they're the ones behind Flux, aren't they? Not Argo.
Yeah.
So
Flux is like it's like the hipster kind of brother of Argo, right? It's like if you're underground, you're doing Flux. No, Flux is great, but Argo CD won the race by a landslide.
Yeah.
Yes, you're correct.
It's true, and Weaveworks is no longer with us, and
yeah, unfortunately, but they really made great contributions with they helped to actually push the entire industry towards and it's like a paradigm shift, and these are one of the singularity points in history where you're like, oh, so this is how we should do things, right? And I think Google came up with the declarative pattern years ago, and we just needed the outside of Google and big tech companies to have the same capabilities and power. There are other 2 principles in GitOps, but maybe after this slide.
All right, let's keep going.
Okay, so what are the approaches? We understand the problem. We want to move the artifact between environments. What are the different approaches of doing that? We can either go in the imperative approach, where we have like a YAML file or bash script that goes through and tries to do kubectl apply, or maybe it runs a YQ or JQ. In order to promote a version, all you really need is to change the tag that your latest Argo CD application points to. That's it. That's like a version promotion. You changed one line, and then you upload the PR, usually with the bot, and now you bump a version. Of course, someone needs to merge it and apply it. You need to have some kind of auditing and the approval process. And the other approach is a more modern one, or more emergent, is the GitOps-based promoters. So rather than describing my promotions pipeline as a bash script, I can also describe the link between the environments using GitOps patterns. And 2 solutions are like Cargo and GitOps promoter from the Argo projects. These are like emerging solutions. I will, however, say that more often than not, you will see imperative solutions in the wild. We went over the definitions. I don't think we should provide a lot of examples. Maybe one word about rollout. When you have canary rollouts, let's say that I changed the like button from blue to purple, okay? Because you have an insider threat within Meta and someone is trolling the production. Now, changing this color might break some of the website. And how can I have control over that? I deploy each time I extend the exposure to 5% more. So I start with 5% and then 25%, and each step in between these gradual rollout is called the bake. So a bake is like my ability to intervene either manually or automatically with the timeout. Another thing that we should say about rolling out in production. Okay, first of all, don't do it at home, or maybe if there's, you know what, if there's one thing that you should do it is at home, because you're not risking anyone. On at home, yeah.
Don't do it at home.
Exactly. Don't make production your test bed. When you have a serious production environment, sometimes there comes the question of build versus buy, which we will tackle. CodeFresh, and this is not an ad for CodeFresh or Octopus Deploy, but one managed solution to have a centralized dashboard around how promotions look like is with CodeFresh. It allows us to have like a view and visibility, and when you do it at scale, it's really hard to just pick open source tools. And no one talks about it. You see like these Medium articles, wow, I should use GitOps. No, you shouldn't use GitOps Promoter, because the total cost of ownership and adhering to compliance and security standards of the organization is hard. This is what most of the articles don't tell you. Don't go and just implement everything they tell you online. Having said that, I'm doing it myself. So what are the interesting considerations when we think about promotions? I just brought up compliance and audit trail. When we have a new rollout of a version to production, and we have a bug or we have an incident, you remember the time when WhatsApp and Meta went down for like more than a few hours because of a DNS problem? I remember it's like a post-apocalypse. Everyone is like, going to TikTok and using SMS or writing letters. It's like, you never imagined that something like that could happen. And then we had another incident like that with OpenAI, and when they were like the single LLM provider, or the most popular one. And when ChatGPT stops working, it's like, I don't know, someone took the electricity and I don't have a backup generator. So when incidents like that happen, you have root cause analysis and you have investigations and lawsuits, because you need to maintain an SLA. You need to remain online, and you need to have high availability and reliability and all these entities. And having an audit trail of who did what and what went where, and doing the reverse process of, okay, this is an EKS cluster in production. I want to go all the way back to the Git commit, to the beginning of the chain, to understand how it happened. This is a super hard problem, and this is important, because otherwise, what are we doing if we don't have visibility over what we're doing? And Wiz, by the way, one of the features that Wiz provides is cloud to code. So imagine opening a container or a pod running in production and going all the way back to the Git commit in the Docker file that changed this container. Isn't that amazing? I mean, how much time do you spend on opening spreadsheets or going back to the terminal and running tons of commands? What if someone could automate it for you and show you it in a dashboard? Or you just click. So one of the main important reasons is audit trail. The second thing is compliance. You need to highly regulated industries, finance, healthcare, DODs, etc. They need to have some compliance with. And what we should ask ourselves when we're deploying, when we're promoting across environments, is the build versus buy classic questions. are we going as an IT organization, or doesn't matter, as any business unit organization? Am I going to really build it in-house and adopt free open source tools, or am I going to pay for a turnkey solution? I mentioned one example in the previous slide, and I hope we appreciate the complexity of what it means to to deploy and promote versions of production. Udi, would you like to add anything on that?
No, I think we can keep going. Unless you have other considerations you want to highlight here.
Maybe one last thing. I remember when I started learning about Kubernetes, everyone talked about service meshes. And I'm like, oh man, I need to learn another buzzword. It's like as if it wasn't enough. Like just learning Kubernetes, it takes years to master Kubernetes. Now I also need to understand how Istio works and Envoy. And so the real reason people adopt service meshes is similar to exactly what we're discussing, is to have some kind of observability and audit of what goes where. And typically it's also compliance, like MPLS encryption between all microservices.
Yeah, okay. I will add one thing though. When we're talking about add-ons and extending Kubernetes through CRDs, you have to remember that the more you add more functionality, you add more capabilities, but you also add more complexity. So now you have a service mesh because you need more visibility into your networking. Now you need to understand Istio and how it works, and you want to implement some auto scaling because you want to be more efficient and save money. Now you need to understand the intricacies of Carpenter or cluster autoscaler. So it's always important to think before you do anything, before you add more complexity. Do I really need this? Does this fit my use case? Maybe if I'm not a bank, I don't need to have such high availability. Maybe I can withstand some downtime that other financial organizations can't. So I don't have to follow the standard of Bank of America if it's not mission critical for me. And I can withstand, like, I don't know, 5 minutes of downtime every month. Well, they can't even have a second of downtime every month.
I couldn't agree more. Don't go by the hype, and it's hard because I did that so many times. My FOMO is just killing me each and every time. I try to combat it, but the more I learn about the technologies, the more I keep it more simple and stupid, because I know to use the right tool for the job. If I'm an early stage startup, I don't need 11 nines of availability, okay? I just don't need it. It costs a lot of money, it requires a lot of manpower, and it has a lot of restrictions. Don't go after the last buzzword just because Netflix and Google use it doesn't mean that you should. Yeah, I agree. So I talk a lot. I should show probably some code, but maybe last 3 slides, and then we'll jump to see some examples, okay?
All right.
Now we're talking about things that, again, they don't appear in the Medium articles, okay? And I mean, in some of them, but I had to learn it in the hard way. So when we think about GitHub is not just code. It used to be like, if you listen to the podcast of the GitHub founder, he was really pissed that he didn't have like a web browser for Git. Sharing and collaboration was a real pain. You needed to, like in the Linux kernel, you still have mailing lists. You get like in your Gmail, you get all these patches, and you're a hacker and you copy and paste these diff files, and then you run like the diff apply and whatever, or patch. But I mean, the times are changing, and we're used to using the web for everything, right? Nowadays it's mobile. It's not even like desktop and web, but a lot of people are spending in mobile. And GitHub started with hosting centralized code repositories, but it extended as a platform to way more than it is today. In GitHub, you have like the storage for artifacts, and you can think of it like a serverless CI/CD cloud. One of the main challenges, and I come from container security, right? This is my bread and butter. This is what I do. The first thing that we should ask ourselves as platform teams and security conscious engineers is, what happens if my CI gets hacked tomorrow? And SolarWinds is like, we've beat this horse so many times. It's already dead like 20 times now. But we had TJ Actions, a recent supply chain attack. Okay, we are consuming a GitHub action from someone else. This is super scary if the CI/CD has like access to all my secrets. Like it can access my secrets manager in AWS or my S3 or my EKS. And one of the mitigation techniques that and it's super relevant to promotions, because like promotions and CI/CD go hand in hand. And when you deploy your solutions, always remember that you could use a self-hosted runner that runs in your environment, and the secrets are never stored within like GitHub servers. This is one thing to be conscious about. The second thing that is very, I would say, rare to find it in documentation, and unless you really experienced it in production, you wouldn't know about it, more often than not. How do you do database migration? Let's say that I have like a column in my database that says full name. So I stored Ofir Cohen in one full string within my database. Now I'm not happy about that. I go to my developers and I tell them, I want to find all the Douglas. Give me all the people that have Douglas in their last name. So this query takes a long time, and they say, okay, let's split the full name into two fields, first name and last name. Now, how do I do that? I am adding a new column, and I need to migrate some of the data from the previous column to the last column. How do I do that without breaking the production? It's very, very hard. So there is a design pattern called expand and contract. And what it means is that when we're doing our promotion, the first thing that we want to do is to start with the database. Okay, this is the most risky component. We add the new column, and then once we rolled out the changes to the database, which is typically centralized, it can be highly available and sharded, but it's typically one database. Then we roll out new versions of our app gradually. Once everything is stable, we contract, and then we can finally remove the old schema objects. So this is a pattern that they should be aware of when you're doing rollouts to productions and promotions. Last two slides. How do we choose between Canary and Blue-Green? Now, you may say that this is only relevant for Argo rollouts, like a single cluster. Why do you bring that up in promotions where we're talking about across environments? So I think it's still important, because a lot of the patterns that we see within a single cluster, they also apply across environments. In the end, it's solving for the same problem. We want to update our software and updating our deployments while maintaining a very low risk. So you have like a checklist. For example, Blue-Green is nice on paper, but if I'm Meta and I'm running the entire Facebook fleet, or I'm running a Google search, doing a Blue-Green deployment would cost me a shit ton of money. Okay, I'm not going to bring up. I need twice the amount of servers in order to run them side by side. This is the blue and the green, the two instances of my application. When I have hundreds of microservices, doing Blue-Green is like it's not the first option that you would go to. You would typically do you would more often than not see Canary in your environment. So be cost conscious and be aware of that fact. Yeah, we talked about, okay, this is like the FOMO, right? We have Prometheus and Istio and Argo rollouts. This is like the dream stack. Oh, I'm going to deploy everything to my cluster, and now everything will be automated. No, don't go there. don't go. I suggest, this is very controversial and an unpopular opinion, but this is pragmatic. This is what I see in the wild, in small startups and more mature companies and also large enterprises. Do it manual, but in an automated fashion, okay, and with an automation mindset. And what do I mean by that? I'm not against automation, but I'm for reducing the risk. And the way we do that, I mean, having Prometheus metrics and knowing what SLO's service level objective. For example, we don't want P99 to exceed 500 milliseconds for any request that comes into the API server. And these things change over time. You need like a team that can maintain it and update it. It's a moving target. You need to do a lot of maintenance work and garbage collection. So unless you are very mature and you really know what you're doing, don't go for the full-blown dream stack with Prometheus and Istio and have everything automated. No, have a DevOps or platform, someone from the platform team or from the development team, manually merge your commit. Nothing wrong will happen, I promise you. Everyone does that. Would you like to add anything before we share a demo?
No, I just want to pop up a question from the audience. Tal is asking, it's a bit late in the game, but he's asking, is Cargo a production-ready tool yet? What do you think?
Yeah, Cargo is a bit new to the game. I think I saw the launch more than a year ago, give or take. I really don't know exactly about the Acuity business. Acuity, by the way, it's Argo for the enterprise. So enterprise typically need the SSO.
Sorry to interrupt, just saying that the founders of Acuity are also the founders of Argo, of the entire Argo project. So they know their stuff. I don't know how production ready it is, but the team behind it definitely understands GitOps.
Yeah, so I agree. They are very. I met Alexander in person. He's a great guy, and Acuity definitely knows what they're doing. I really cannot vouch for the maturity of the tool and what is the market share, if this is what you're asking. I really don't know, but I do know that it's very elegant. I really like their style and their solution, and most often than not, you will see an in-house solutions for promotions. And it's a system that is very hard to change. If you're starting a new project, then why not? I mean, give it a try. But I cannot speak a lot about market share. Mm-hmm. Do we have other questions on the chat?
No, not currently. That was it for now. I think we can move to do you need to share your VS Code?
Yeah, let's do that.
So, we have some time if you want to double click on anything on any of the slides.
Yeah. So maybe one thing that I failed to mention is that we roll out, and what we need to have is a culture of testing. Before you roll out a new change to production, ask yourselves, what is the testing coverage that we have for our applications? Do we really know what to test, and what areas are blind spots? And this is functional, but what about non-functional requirements? So performance and latency is one example. We have what is called like the golden metrics in SRE and platform engineering. You would want to monitor, even if you're not using automated analysis with Argo Rollouts, it doesn't matter. You still need to maintain your business KPIs, which are SLAs and SLOs. So monitor for P50, P95, P99 latency. Ensure that you don't get, if you're a web application, ensure that you don't get too many 5xx HTTP status codes. See that you're not getting pod restarts. I will give you one example. Let's say that I'm developing in C++, God forbid. I did that for quite a few years. And we have a memory leak, okay? We're seeing the pods, they keep crashing. Why? Because they get killed out of memory. So it could happen. And even in managed code like Java and C#, I could still have a memory leak if I'm using native and unmanaged code. So monitor for these kind of things, and monitor for pods that are failing because of a functional bug. Liveness pop is failing because you have a bug in your code, or your manifest is misconfigured, or you have a firewall rule that doesn't allow the kubelets to contact the pod. So monitor for these kind of things, and develop a good testing culture. This is a cultural thing. I know that people are very romantic when they talk about culture, but it really is. I mean, if you have in Wiz, all of the developers are like ultra senior engineers. They are all around the players. They know Go, and they know Kubernetes, and they know cloud engineering and Linux and everything. So you have a very mature organization that is also very owner and responsible. But it's not like that in all other organizations. It is a cultural thing. Last thing, watch out for like other components and other moving parts. It's not just your application. You also have database calls that may fail. You introduced a new table. Maybe you need to also introduce a new index. So all this kind of stuff.
And because Kubernetes is so distributed and vast and complex, it's not always intuitive to know what really happened. Like you have an killed, or you have a pod restarting, and with a vanilla use case, it's easy to fix usually, but in like real life, large scale systems, it's a wild goose chase to find the root cause, and unless you have some really good observability tooling and cultural processes in place, including, I don't know how you feel about it, but are you a proponent of the blameless culture, or do you think that people need to feel the heat when they break something?
I am all in for blameless culture, but I think I also advocate for ownership and accountability. So you build it, you run it, you break it, you fix it, and don't pin others on your mistakes. So if you know, I remember one time when someone broke something in the Linux kernel, and Linus Torvalds is very known. He has a very interesting way of interacting with people sometimes. And this maintainer was like, so I didn't break anything. The original behavior was bug. I just fixed the bug. And he almost killed him because he said the rule number 1 is don't break user space. Okay? Linus Torvalds is an example of someone with a product mindset. He's very conscious about his users. He's very conscious about stability and source stability, not binary ABI stability. And this is a cultural thing and a mindset. So if you break, you need to fix it. This is my approach.
I agree. All right, so
yeah, so maybe I will just share the VS Code. Unless, do we have other questions on the chat, or?
No, not right now. Let me check.
We're almost at time.
Yeah, we are. No questions right now. I hope it's not because people are shy.
Yeah.
It's because everything is super clear and interesting. But I have a question for you at the end.
Okay.
More of a future-facing question. But let's see the code first.
Okay. 1 sec. I lost the share button. Oh, okay.
Here we are. Oh, that's you again.
Share screen. Okay.
Maybe you just need to flip the tabs. There we are.
Can you see it?
Yeah. Now we can see it.
Okay. So what do we have here? we have an application. Now remember, in Argo Rollouts, I'm hearing myself twice. So 1 sec.
No, you're good. You just added yourself twice, so you were hearing it yourself.
Yeah. How about now? Okay.
Now you're good. We're just missing the screen. If you can share it again.
In a sec, of course.
Yeah, here we are.
Do you see the rollout, Yamel?
Yeah.
Okay. In Argo CD, what we typically do is we have our kind deployment. In Kubernetes, we have kind equals deployment. This is how we represent a stateless service. In Argo Rollout, typically what we have to do is just change the API version from V1 apps or apps V1 to Argo Pod and then change the kind to rollout. So we have this demo application from the Argo website, and we have a service because we want to expose it to other apps. I also use Customize for multiple environments. And what's important to understand is what's a promotion, okay? Previously, what I mentioned is that in order to promote a version from, let's say, from dev to staging or staging to prod, all we really need to do, and it sounds silly because I thought that promotion is like a ceremony. I need to wear like a knight's clothes and to have like a sword. But all it really does is just YAML. It's YAML. It turtles all the way down and YAML manifests. Okay, we just need to run YQ and bump the GitHub shop, and then we need to open a PR. So what you typically see in a CI/CD pipelines is that, at least in GitOps, is that you have like a bot that opens a PR. You will see like a new pull request created from someone that is not you. It's the service identity of GitHub. That's all it does. You get a new PR with a new YAML, and then you, of course, what you want to add here is a gates and the links to other environments. Like you would typically have the staging first, and then you would have a set of tests, and then you would also have like a performance gates. So I just wanted to show you the core principles. So this is oversimplified for the purpose of this session. Would you like to ask or add anything on top of that?
No, I think if we can learn something like on a high level, except for all the practical tips and best practices that you showed, I think simplicity is key. And once again, the KISS principle is at play, and just goes to show that complicated is not always better, and simple always wins.
100%. Keep it simple. If there's one thing that you should take from this talk, keep it simple. Don't just go by the hype. Although I do that myself every now and then, but try to challenge yourself and ask, do I really need another service mesh and another operator?
And now I want to ask you something about the future. We've been talking about automation and about the risks of automation, but also the need for speed and velocity. So right now, everybody's talking about AI SREs. Everybody's talking about code assistants or just code AI coders or whatever. It's all being run by AI. Now even the ops space is starting to get occupied by AI tools. So how do you see the future being, security minded? How do you see the future for automation or autonomous operations? What would be the GitOps of the next 2 years? What would it look like?
It's a great question. I recently debugged a performance degradation bug with a huge customer of ours. And we had tons of not tons, we had 4 or 5 people who are senior, experienced in production engineering and Kubernetes and Go and everything that you want. And we found one blind spot after the other. And of course, we used LLMs and we used the wisdom of AI. But I think what this taught me is that currently we are not at the point where it can really autonomously detect, because the main performance degradation that we saw was found by a human. Maybe it consulted AI, but it was like after 2 weeks of the latency spike that we saw in the cluster. So what I learned from this is that, and trust me, all of the personas are super experienced in Kubernetes and production. It's not the first incident that we handled. I think for the 80-20, it could solve a lot of things, and it does. You have you have your own company, right? Which Commodore, which helps a lot in the Kubernetes space and relieves us from a lot of toil and a lot of manual and repetitive work. So, and you have paying customers. So obviously you are solving issues, and even the LLM, like the basic ChatGPT, can solve a lot of things. But at the same time, there will still be the last mile and the very tough to crack problems, and they are not that rare. They are still here. So I think in maybe a few months from now, AI is moving so fast, so I try not to overcommit, but maybe in a few months or a year or 2 years from now, it will be able to do the last 10% miles, which are crucial. So if you ask me, can I reduce my team from 20 to 1 or 2? Currently, the answer is no. I can augment them with the AI capabilities, but maybe I can reduce it by a fraction of 2, but not by a fraction of 20, in my opinion. What do you think? I'm curious.
No, I agree that we definitely at the current moment still need a human in the loop, and we need people to, I don't know if the detection is maybe in that case the detection was the challenge. I don't think it's always the case. Sometimes your own monitoring tools can detect something, but then what do you do about, how do you perform the investigation and reach to the actual root cause, and then how you remediate it, and how long time I mean how much time and resources it's consuming from you. And what I see is as part of the hype and the FOMO, so everybody does like this ChatGPT wrapper that just does API calls, and they think, oh, perfect, I don't need an SRE, or I can use less SREs because I have this agent that just throws screenshots of errors to ChatGPT and bring. The problem with that is that you will always get like some generic answer and not like without the context of your own system and the historical context of previous events and all of that. That's very unique for every organization. Then those agents are useless basically. So it's just saving you the time of copy pasting to ChatGPT, but it's not providing any actual insight or knowledge that model has some type of, like, for example, MCP server, another buzzword, or or perhaps some type of RAG model where the agent can collect different layers of data that are specific to the user and not just generic Kubernetes knowledge.
I really agree.
So yeah, I think for the time being, all of our jobs are secured, but we will need to be careful in the near future. Probably, yeah. Watch out and follow Ofir Cohen for more ways to stay ahead of the curve and secure your job in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Udi, and I really like what the Platformers community is doing. You are providing great value. I encourage everyone to follow the page and follow the sessions. You have a lot of great sessions, upcoming ones, right?
Yeah, and the old ones are also relevant and
Valuable to watch.
things still. So yeah, there's a whole library of videos. And thank you so much, Ofir, for joining. It's not trivial at all that you find time to share your knowledge and expertise with our community. And thank you all platformers who joined us on this session. I hope you all learned something. And like we said, feel free to reach out to us through the platformers community or directly to Ofir. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but you volunteered yourself, so feel free to reach out to Ofir as well with any questions. And hopefully I'll see you soon, maybe at KubeCon. KubeCon Atlanta is just around the corner. Yeah, so thank you, Ofir. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night, and see you next time.
Cheers.